Hi everybody, welcome back to Bentley House. I'm Ara, and today I'm going to show you how I made this addition onto my Addams family mini mansion. This attic room is the first room I have made from scratch since starting my YouTube channel. And it's the only room that wasn't in my original plan. I decided to make this room while I was working on the siding. This is actually going to be Uncle Fester's room. Originally, I was going to put him in the very top bell tower where the room would have been just really small and cramped, but I decided since I love his character so much, I wanted to go ahead and make him an entire room, so that's what I did. Though most of the kit is made out of MDF, this room is made out of foam board, mat board, and just a few pieces of wood trim. The first part of this tutorial is going to be more of a vlog type where I'm hand holding the camera telling you step by step my thought process in building the walls. And then about halfway through it's going to switch over into the normal way I do tutorials, which is a voiceover over video clips that are sped up. I hope you enjoy this tutorial. Let's get started. I just want to show you the part of the house that I'm working on. This is the whole house, kind of in disarray at the moment, the main body of the house. And then this is Gomez and Morticia's room, and this is the dining room. And the part that I'm adding on to is this part. I'm going to create a room right here. So it's going to be on the other side of this attic hallway. And to start this process, I cut a piece of foam board that was the exact same size as the space up here. And what I did is I just did a layout of where I want everything to be. So I want a ladder over in this corner that's going to go up the side of the house for roof access. And I want Fester's desk. And over here is going to be like a wardrobe. And there's going to be a column. And inside the house there is a doorway back there. So I want that doorway to extend in here. You won't actually be able to see the door. You'll see kind of a walkway that comes in here. There's going to be the bed. These square shapes here are going to be columns. Because I'm making this out of foam board, I want to make sure that it is as supported as possible. And so I need to make sure I get my columns in there. I also have a chair, some books, and a trunk. And so this is my starting point, and I'm ready to put up some walls. To create the walls, I am using the same type of foam board, and I am going to use the existing roof as a template. So I put the foam board up to the house, and then I used a pencil to make a line along the existing roof line. And it won't sit right here, it's actually going to sit back, but that gives me a matching roof line so it will look like it's supposed to be on the house. I'm leaving a space here because I want the front panel to sit flush on the front, and it's going to butt up against the side of this roof panel here. My second wall is a duplicate of this first wall, and it's actually going to sit over here and be at a slight angle. All of the attic rooms are at a slight angle, and that's hard to hold and videotape, but I will show it to you all together in a second. So here you can see both of the side panels that match, and then around the front, this is my final wall for this room. And again, I use the same angle that I just took off of the existing house. So there's an angle going this way and an angle going this way. So the goal is for it to look like it belongs to the house and has all the same angles as the existing roof. So this gives me a real good idea of what it's going to end up looking like. And you may be thinking, isn't it kind of dumb to make a dollhouse piece out of foam board? And I probably wouldn't make one of the lower levels out, but this level is on the top, and I do feel like I can reinforce it really well, so I'm not too worried about using a foam board piece on the top, but I don't think I'd make an entire dollhouse out of it. But I will show you how I plan to reinforce it and hopefully make it a really strong part of the mansion. And then once I had all the walls up, I could go ahead and make a roof. I just set a large piece of foam board on top of the roof and traced around where I needed it to cover the walls. And I have my space. Now it does look very crooked and like it's leaning over, and probably if this was a real house, this wall would be straight, but I am going to make this very much look like an attic space, kind of like Gomez and Morticia just kind of gave him the attic. So this would be the attic access, and then this is the actual attic space. So I'm going to have a lot of exposed wall boards, and so hopefully that's kind of the look that I'm going for with Fester's room. Before I glue all the walls together and the ceiling together, I wanted to make sure and play around with the outside. So this is going to be the roof, and it was looking rather boring, so I went and looked up the original film version of the house, and they do have one. It's actually on the other side of the house, so it would be this part in the movie, but you know, that already had windows installed. So I'm going to put it over here. It has this little pointy type soffit and then a circle window here. And so I've put this on here. I'm going to trace it and then cut it out so that you can see this from the inside. And these are pieces that I just kept from cutting these sides at an angle. So this angle should already match the angle of the roof. So don't always throw away the pieces you cut if you're making an angled roof, because they might help you a little bit later. On this side of the roof, I've decided I'm going to make it look like Fester has been working on his explosives, and I want to make it look as though he has just kind of destroyed part of the roof. You're going to see a little bit of 2x4s. It's going to be another light access for this room so that it's not so dark. So before I put these walls together permanently, I'm going to cut the hole for this and for this. After I have those cut, I'm going to go ahead and glue these pieces together so they stay at the correct angles, and then I will be working on the inside. Now that I have my pieces cut out, I also did the inside piece there. I'm going to use hot glue, and I don't ever suggest hot glue as your only means of gluing in a dollhouse, but it is going to quickly solidify these joints here, so that I know that this really important angle is going to stay when I start working on it at my desk. I've glued all the joints on the bottom and sides of the roof, but except I did not glue at the very top where the sides meet the ceiling, so that I can still remove that and more easily work inside. And now that the walls are put together, I can more easily work on this at my desk. I'm going to start taking Matboard, and I always get questions about Matboard, so you can find the definition of Matboard in the description box below. I'm going to use this to reinforce all the walls. It's going to make my room just a little bit stronger. I'm going to place a piece against the side. I don't have to worry about it going all the way to the back because you actually won't see that side of the Matboard. And I'm just going to cut it to the correct size, and then I'm going to take my ruler and start marking 1/2 inch marks along each side. I'm going to make this look like a wall that has exposed wood, and so I'm putting in the lines of where the wood would be, just carefully with a ruler. It's easier to use a ruler that has a cork bottom on the bottom of the ruler so that it doesn't slip on your paper. Now I'm going to take my X-Acto knife, and I'm going to make a straight line cut on either side of each pencil mark. This is what's going to create a divot or a gap in the board, and it's going to make it look like there is gaps in between each piece of wood. And I'm not going to cut all the way through, I'm just cutting through the first layer of the Matboard, and there you can see that it has made an indentation into the piece, and I'm going to do that for each and every line. This is a time-taking process, but in the end I feel like it does make a very good look, and I mean, it doesn't take any more time than laying individual pieces of wood themselves. Plus, I find that Matboard can be more cost effective, especially when you're doing an entire room full of exposed wood. So I just glued that piece in with wood glue, and I made sure to get quite a bit of glue at the bottom to reinforce where I did the hot glue, and I'm covering every single surface with this same process. In the beginning I told you I want this to look like an attic space, and so I'm really going for that look by making it just look like exposed wood on the floor, the walls, the ceiling. Every single part of this room is going to look like it just is not a finished space. As you can see, there are going to be some gaps in the spaces where the mat board meets. So in order to take care of this, I'm going to use some craft wood, and you can find this at places like Hobby Lobby, any places that supports crafters. And I'm just going to cover up those areas, and this also helps give the attic look because these boards would have been attached to some sort of other wood piece going vertically. So anywhere I have a seam, I'm just going to cover that up, and I also put a couple going diagonal in the back to give it more of a decorative look. Those are not necessary. To make the wall in the back, I used some more foam board. I made it in the shape that I wanted and then covered it again with mat board. I used the same wood technique, and then I also covered the column, but I did not put wood on there, I just kept it flat. And it fits in the back of the attic nicely. This is going to create that hallway that I told you about earlier. I made a second column to go towards the front. If you'll remember, I had those two center columns in my original design, and I made this beam that's going to stretch from the front column to the back column. This is going to give the columns some stability before I put the ceiling on, and then once the ceiling is on, it's an extra surface to add glue. And once that was glued in with wood glue, I made sure to add a few extra wood baseboard pieces. Now I want to give a base coat to the entire room. I'm going to use a darkish medium, it's more like a medium brown, and cover the entire surface. Anywhere where it's supposed to look like wood, which is basically the entire room. I also made wood pieces to go on top of the ceiling. This is the ceiling foam board piece that I showed in the beginning of the video. I also made a wood plank type surface on mat board and glued it to that, and then covered that with the same brown paint. So here you can see the base color. I left it patchy. I only did one coat and left it patchy because I like the patchiness. It makes it look like variations in the wood color. Next, I mixed some of that same brown with a black and got a darker brown, and this is going to go in all the cracks between the wood planks. This is going to accentuate those cracks that I worked so hard to get in there, and also add age, because as a building would age, a lot of dirt and grime would get into any cracks that are available. Here's how it looks once it's all done. You can definitely see a difference, and it gives it a little bit more interest. I did the same exact thing to every single crack and crevice in the attic, and then used that same color to paint the floor. Now I'm going to add just a little bit of a highlight, and so I'm dry brushing on a tan, and I'm not wanting to put a lot on there, just a little bit. That's why you can see me kind of rub it in with my finger a little bit. I want it to be subtle, but I still want it to be there just to add a little bit more interest and a little bit more depth to the paint that is on the wood. This is going to again go on the ceiling, which is what you are looking at, and then also all over the inside of the room. Now I'm going to work on this little explosion piece. I'm going to take out some of the foam board because I don't want it to look like, it has to look more like an explosion, which is going to be chaotic and not as nicely cut. And then on the inside, I am going to cut along the lines of the wood boards that I created, and I'm going to start bending out the pieces as if the wood boards had bent outward, because I made it look like there was an explosion on the inside of the room, and so I needed the boards to bend outward. And then I also added black paint around there because those parts of the wall would have definitely been singed. I'm also going to add some black paint, just very lightly. Again, this is dry brushing along the baseboards. Anywhere you want it to look very grimy, like dust and dirt has gathered, just dry brush some dark paint, but do it slowly. It's always easier to add more and it's harder to take away, especially once we've done so much work on the paint job of the wood. It's better to build that up slowly. So now I need to work on the front part of the house, and you're going to see what looks like a little bit of craziness. If you've seen my siding video, I will link it above, but I need to make this triangle patch match the existing siding. So I needed to add that before I started the window framing. This is the circle size of the window, so I am going to go one size down to create the inside ring for the framing of the window. And then I am going to go 2 sizes up to create the outside of the window frame. And I need to make 2 of these and cut them out very carefully. This is in Matboard, not foam board. And sometimes Matboard can be a pain to cut, but I feel like it's worth it in the end. So now I have 2 of these cut out, and I'm just going to test that on top of my siding. And it works pretty well. I decided instead of a window, I wanted to make more of an attic vent. And so what I'm going to do is take some black paint, and anywhere where I can see the inside foam board, I'm going to go ahead and paint that black. And then I'm going to take some of my craft wood and I'm going to cut slits, and then I'm going to go ahead and glue that straight onto the foam board opening. I'm going to glue each and every piece, and I'm trying to be careful about some of them being straight, but then this is the Addams family house, so I imagine some of them might be a little bit crooked, so I don't have to worry about it that much. Since I don't show you how I put the siding on in this video, if you are interested in that, make sure you check out that video. I show you step by step, and then I also show you the painting process. You will see me in just a few minutes start the painting process, which is putting a base coat on everything, but if you want to see the full process, make sure and check out that video. Once all the slats are in how I like them and the glue is dry, I'm going to go ahead and put a base coat of black on each one, and it's going to start looking like they're disappearing back into the void, but later on when I do the siding, I'm going to brush a little bit of the siding paint onto those slats and they will start to show up a little bit better. And then once all that's done, I'm going to add some wood glue to the circle that I cut earlier, and then put that on as the frame around my vent. And then, as I said before, add my brown base coat. I also did the same thing on the inside. I took that second circle frame that I created, matched the paint job, and then glued it on the inside of the vents. Now I'm putting everything back on. It is time for me to glue it into its final spot. As you can see, we do have a little bit of warping, and that's going to happen whenever I add paint or glue onto foam board. So what I'm going to do now, I needed to make sure everything I wanted to do on the inside was done. I am going to be adding glue and clamping everything down so that it fits correctly together when it's done. I'm going to add some wood glue to the base, and then put that flush onto the existing dollhouse, and I want to make sure I don't get any glue on the piece next to it because those pieces can come apart. And then I'm going to use clamps. I'm going to use quite a few clamps to make sure that it is as flush as possible. And while it is drying, I'm going to clamp it to the roof next to it. Even though it's not glued, that will also help it stay in place. And then on the other side, I'm going to add masking tape where clamps won't work. I want to make sure I do this gluing process all at the same time. So while the first glue that I put on the underside of the room is wet, I also want to make sure and add the glue for the ceiling. And this is going to help everything get into its correct spot. So I put glue on all of the edges of the walls and then also on the columns that I created. Once I have it in the correct spot, I'm going to start adding weight to the top to flatten it out because it had bowed. I want this to dry for a full 24 hours completely clamped so that I know that it's not going to bow anymore. Everything should be just as I had set it before the glue dried, and fantastic. It pulled away from the house, nothing got glued to the other part of the house, and all of the angles are staying where I want them to stay. Now that everything is glued into place, I feel like I can add one last paint job to the outside to match the rest of the house. Of course, I will be adding shingles in the future, but just so right now it looks like it all goes together, I'm adding some black, and then around the edges I added just a little layer of wood glue on the edge of the foam board, and that gave me a really great painting surface for me to paint some brown on the edge. And really looking close, I really can't tell the difference between the MDF that is right next to the foam board. So here is the final look. This is Fester's room. It's supposed to look like an unfinished attic room. As I go and as I create items for it, I'm sure it will look even more attic-y. At least that's my hope. I hope you guys really enjoyed this tutorial. Let me know if you have any questions. Be sure to check out that siding tutorial for the parts in this video that I didn't film. And yes, pretty soon I'll be starting to make things for Uncle Fester. Some light bulbs, a bed, a trunk, and I do realize that I did not put the original columns that I had talked about towards one side of the room, but I did feel like that would block a lot of what the viewer is able to see. So I decided to omit those, and after gluing everything together, I do feel like it is strong enough to hold its own. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. I do have ideas for things I need to make for Fester, but if you have any ideas that you haven't heard me say or you didn't see on the plans, leave them in the comments. I'd love to hear from you guys. Please remember, we're still doing the fundraiser for Dollhouses for kids battling cancer. If you're interested in that, I will leave the link to that video in the description as well. I hope you guys have an amazing week, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!